Welcome to the Salt Podcast. I'm George Iskander, and as always, joining me, my handsome co-host Simon Thomas Gilto. Today, we're very honoured to have our next guest, which is Father Lazarus Yassa. He's from Christ the Good Shepherd Church, American Coptic Orthodox Church in Long Beach, California. Now, Father Lazarus isn't just any priest. He's someone who has a really strong love for Christ and for people, and the truth really shines through everything he does. And he's a real voice of clarity in a confused world. So we actually came across Father Lazarus on Instagram. Actually, it was on the Orthodox Spirit podcast, and I want to shout out to Mike Mack, the host, for having a really amazing program. We'll add his link in the bio of this episode. And he also connected us with Father Laz, so I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Mac Attack.
And let me say, every time that I've heard Father Lazarus speak on Instagram, it's always been very profound, and it's something I've always left saying like, wow, like I really needed to hear that. Absolutely. So today we're diving into his story, his early life, his call to priesthood, spiritual struggles we all go through, and how we can remain faithful to Christ in a world that is constantly trying to pull us away. So from California to your screen, please welcome to the Salt Podcast, the very wise, the very humble, Father Lazarus Yassa.
Thank you so much for having me. God bless you guys.
Thank you very much. Before we get into it, I know LA is in a bit of ruins at the moment. We've seen a lot of stuff on the news with riots and things going on. So firstly, are you in a safe area, and what's the situation like right now?
It's really tough. Thankfully, we're not in the heart of it, but it's affecting everyone. And all we say is, Lord, have mercy, and we pray for everyone. You know, it's scary. I see both sides of this issue. And of course, we never encourage anyone to go out and be unruly. Everyone has a chance and an opportunity to voice their opinion. But we pray for the safety of everyone, and may God have mercy.
Yeah. So is it safe where you are at the moment, or is it? Are you like right on the footsteps?
Yeah. Thank God we're not in the heart of everything. It's a little bit removed. Long Beach is. I mean, most of this stuff is going on in downtown LA, but there are pockets in other areas. So, there are freeways that are shut down that affect everyone. Once one freeway shuts down or a couple freeways shut down, it affects everything. We're praying that this situation is resolved in a peaceful manner, and people feel safe and people feel heard.
So the president actually called the National Guard or something like that, isn't that right? To kind of control the situation. Has that helped things or escalated things?
I really don't know, to be honest. It's such a time that I think desperate times calls for desperate measures, but at the same time, there's a lot of people living in fear. So it's a situation we don't know when the end of this is. May God have mercy, and may God save lives and protect people. And the fear is also people that are trying to use this as a way to
take advantage of people.
Use a situation to their advantage. That's another scary thing too, added to this.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of times when there's riots and things like that, there's a lot of looting that happens, and crime escalates because everyone's just in chaos. So they just kind of take advantage of the situation. So God willing, everything fixes up soon. And, always when these things happen, we always think that God allows these things to allow us to get closer to God, or allow people to start searching for more answers. So, hopefully they search and they find the Salt Podcast and they tune in and they listen.
Hopefully.
Amen.
Now, thank you so much for joining us, Father. I wanted to just slightly divert from this. Obviously, we pray for God's will with what's happening with where you are at the moment and with everyone around you. I wanted to just slightly divert and ask you, you obviously live in California. What is America like? Because I personally haven't been there, but when we were doing some research for this episode, I found out George has been there. So I wanted to find out, what is it like? I've heard it's sort of the devil's playground in a sense.
Well, LA in particular, more so than other places. That's when I went and visited, I think back in 2013, it was on my honeymoon. yeah, LA was very different. I think it's yeah, it just felt different to other places in the US that I visited, especially going through Hollywood, and I just didn't feel very spiritual. It felt very like maybe the void of God or absence of God. That's what I really felt in that area. Living there, how do you see it, or how do you feel?
Well, I grew up in Southern California, and thankfully, I was raised by two loving parents by God's grace. And so even with everything, kind of working against those who are really trying to live with Christ, I still found Christ, or Christ found me. Um, so honestly, though, you're right. There is, of course, I mean, being in the center of Hollywood, and Hollywood having, a focus in a certain direction to lead people away from God. We see that very clearly in so many things. And myself being coming from a journalism background, so I saw it firsthand. If you're a Christian, you're it's kind of frowned upon. You know, I don't I don't remember people saying anything directly to me, but there would be snarky remarks just to kind of get a reaction out of me.
Mm.
And within, I was working as a journalist for about 3 years, so it was very clear that this is not a place that I wanted to continue my
Mm.
career in. And so thankfully God opened the door for priesthood. But with that being said, I think it highlights all the more that people are hungry for Christ, because a lot of people are coming to Christ these days, and a
Mm.
lot of people are opening their eyes and seeing the darkness that's behind so much. And so in these last couple of years, we baptized more people than I've ever baptized in the prior 15 years to my
Wow.
priesthood. So
Wow.
I've been a priest now for almost 17 years. So this last year and a half, 2 years, more than all the 15 years prior.
That's
So
amazing.
it's pretty amazing.
I mean, it's a good viewpoint to take because I mean, we look at it and we see a lot of the bad, but I guess it's that darkness sometimes that pushes people to go to the light.
Mm.
Exactly. Hmm.
Yeah. So I guess you touched on your experience as a journalist, and prior to recording, we actually spoke to you a little bit about what that was like. So if you can share with us what it was like, and me and Simon are big basketball fans, and you met two of our icons that we grew up watching and loving. So can you please share with us a little bit about that?
And take your time with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I chose journalism initially because I wanted to be rich and famous, and and I quickly learned that's kind of the time in my life when I wasn't that close to God, and so soon after my college experience, or towards the end of my college experience, I ran into Bishop Moussa, the Bishop of the Youth. I know he's been probably to
Yeah,
Australia
yeah.
several
I've met
times,
him before. Yeah,
maybe not as much now,
yeah.
but my era, he was coming every year. And this man's joy changed my life. You know, Pope Shenouda, I mentioned the story in one of the other podcasts, but Pope Shenouda was visiting our church. And at that time, again, I wasn't really that close to church. And so my mom was like, you have to come. You have to see Pope Shenouda. He's coming to our church. I was like, I don't feel like going. She's like, no, you have to go. How often does the Pope come to our church, right?
Mm.
So I
Mm.
went, and I don't remember much of the meeting, but afterwards, this bishop comes up to me and he hugs me like we're best friends.
Wow.
And I'm like, who is this guy? I asked myself, is he somebody that I met before that I forgot, or um, does he think I'm someone else? And then but the joy that was in him, the love that was in him, it drew me to want to find out who he is, and I wanted to know the source of what he had that I didn't have, you
Mm.
know. So little by little, I found out he's a bishop, and he's the bishop of the youth, and he speaks at conventions and retreats. So I went to one of these conventions and I heard him speak, and it was what I've been missing all my life. He he was speaking with purpose. He was speaking with love. He was speaking um, with a sincerity and truth, and it's something that I was hungry for. And so I got closer and closer to him. As I started getting closer to him, and then I found a father confession by God's grace, and I started to serve. And service was kind of a turning point for me in my life, especially serving the poor. That's always been something that was very important to me. When you read the scriptures, you realize that very quickly. Um, and so I graduated college, and I was working as a journalist. I was working at the Channel 4 News, local NBC LA. I was working behind the scenes, but my goal was to become a reporter on television.
Mm.
And so I was building a demo reel of me, of myself on camera. And so you pay the cameraman a little extra, and they'll spend some time to film you doing the same story as the reporter.
Yeah.
LA is such a big market, so you can't really get that job off the bat. You have to kind of work your way up.
Yeah.
And so, but thankfully, with being at NBC, which is a major news network here in Southern California, I was able to go to Laker practices. I interviewed Shaq and Kobe.
Wow.
That was a pretty cool experience. It was in the time when they were winning their championships, and that was a fun time. We had Mark Mattson, and he did the funny dance when they won the championship. It was really a fun time when LA was winning that three-peat. But with all of that being said, I was very unfulfilled, extremely unfulfilled. I felt like, no, there's something more to life, and I don't want to spend the rest of my life as a journalist and being a Christian in the media. It's difficult. Nobody really directly said anything to me, but it was very clear that I was an outsider. I was different. And there were very few other Christians, very few. In a newsroom of a couple of hundred people, I could count probably on one hand people that were Christian, or at least openly Christian. So yeah, it was a little bit hostile, but I was desiring to serve God in some capacity. And as you guys know, in our tradition, we don't choose a life of service unless you're going to be a monk. Which I had been visiting the monastery quite often. We have a monastery here in California, and I had been visiting the monastery while working as a journalist. So almost on a bi-weekly basis, I would go and visit the monastery and spend a day or two there. And so in the back of my mind, I was thinking, well, I'm unhappy in journalism, and I love coming to the monastery. Is God opening the door for monasticism for me? And so that was a big question in my mind. I did have a desire also to be married. So I was kind of wrestling between the two. And thankfully, Amba Moussa was still, every year he would come, and I became good friends with Amba Moussa because my name before the priesthood was George Yassa. Okay.
Beautiful name.
Yassa is
it's a title of God, by the way. Do you know that?
No, I didn't.
The name George is a title of God. So when the Lord said, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine dresser, my Father is the Gorgios.
Really?
Wow.
The title vine dresser, or farmer in other translations, but vine dresser.
I know farmer,
It's George.
Wow, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
George.
That's
I'm
amazing.
going to have
It's a
to
title
change
of
his
God.
contact now.
So Simon, you got to respect him a little. No,
Do you know what Simon means? Or
No one cares.
Simon? I don't know what Simon means.
Well,
unfortunately.
Jesus said
Amen.
Simon, Peter. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's right.
Peter was the rock. Sorry, not even Simon. He actually got rid of Simon and went with Peter. Anyway.
Title of God.
Okay. So Amba Moussa was coming every year, and his best friend in Egypt was Girgis Yassa. So I was the Girgis Yassa, or the George Yassa of America, and he had a best friend. So he remembered me, and I every time I'd call him, I tell him I'm the Girgis Yassa of America. So he remembered me. So I got really close to Amba Musa, and he became really like a father figure to me. And so he would come, and so as I was getting closer to God and started to serve more, I said, Sayyidina, what does God want from me? I'm unhappy in this field, but I also had priests that were behind me saying, you need to be in the media. We need a voice. You can,
That's a good point,
be
yeah.
somewhat of a voice for the Coptic people, which were already underrepresented. And so I was like, oh gosh, I have to do this for my people. But I hated it, and
Sorry, Father.
I felt unfulfilled.
How
I'm
old?
sorry.
How old were you at this time?
I graduated college at 21, and I was working from uh, until about 23,
Okay.
from 21, 22, 23. And this was in the year from 2001 till about 2003.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So
Continue.
I was talking with Amba Musa, and I said, what does God want from me? Does God want me to be married? Or does God want me to become a monk? Does God want me to continue in journalism, or does God want me to do something else? And this is what he told me. He said, pray, serve, get married, get consecrated. And it was prophetic. I didn't really grasp what he was saying at the time. But soon afterwards, my contract at the local news channel in NBC was ending. And so I had to find another job. And as I was telling you, I already had planned a demo reel, and I sent that out all over. And I had a interview in New York, upstate New York, and also in Ohio. And so I was potentially going to move and be an on-air personality. This was what I was working for. And so somehow, some way, Amba Serapion, the metropolitan of our diocese, he found out that I was leaving. And so he asked to speak with me, and he said, I would like for you to consider to stay. And I said, well, I don't know why. I mean, I didn't understand why. I said, well, but I'm going to be a reporter. This is what I've been working for. He said, no, why don't you stay and think about service? I still didn't understand what he was saying. He said, maybe to be a priest one day. And it was shocking to me.
Wow.
It was as if that hit me with a ton of bricks, because
Of course, yeah.
even though Amba Musa kind of told me this, and actually my mom had a dream of me as a baby that I gave her communion, which is really interesting.
Oh,
Wow.
It still wasn't something real for me. And I told him, no, say, no, you have the wrong person. Like, I'm not, this is not for me. Even though in my heart, I wanted to do something for God, but I still, till this day, I don't feel I don't deserve. And if you ask my wife and my kids, I'm sure they will tell you, they made a mistake with
You're giving us a lesson in humility here.
No. No, thank God. No, it's something I don't deserve, and it's been a big blessing. It's a cross and a resurrection at the same time.
Absolutely.
There was an interview with an Eastern Orthodox priest about, how hard is it to become how hard is it to be a priest, and what he said, it was like, if it was perfect, it was exactly, he said, you have to die. You have to die. And many times it's very, very difficult. There's a fierce attack on all priests and all clergy, because strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. So we really have to pray for our priests. We have to pray for our shepherds. And especially this day and age where everything is publicized and everything is, out there, and the cancel culture, it's like people are waiting for one little wrong thing, not even a major wrong thing, one little wrong thing.
Of course,
Always.
yeah.
And then all of a sudden, let's cancel this person. So Sayedna, approached me, and then soon after I met my soon-to-be wife, and she's my backbone. She's the silent worker behind the scenes to allow me to serve and try to do all my crazy things. I have ADHD, so I have 1,000 projects all at once, and it's kind of a gift and a curse because my mind is all over the place all the time.
Mm.
And at the same time, though, I'm able to kind of juggle a lot of things by God's grace. So thank God, God gave us a blessed family, my wife, two girls, and it's been a blessing.
Beautiful. So thank you for sharing that somewhat of a biography. I didn't know much of that about you, to be honest with you. So you stated that you felt obviously unworthy when you got the call to become a priest, and you're saying that you still feel unworthy, but from the outside, I can say definitely not true. A lot of people do look up to you. I want to ask a question though. What were your expectations of priesthood at the start versus the reality now that you're in it? Have you felt much of a big difference?
That's a very interesting question. You really can't have expectations for priesthood
Mm.
because it's a whole new world. You're, you know, I was asked one time. Somebody came up to me and he said, "Abuna, you know what? I think I want to be a priest." I said, "Habibi, that's wonderful. Just I have to tell you one thing. When you're ready to be a doormat for people to walk all over you, to come to Christ and clean their shoes on you, then you're ready."
Mm.
He was taken aback. And I'm saying that not with a broken heart. I'm saying that with all sincerity, that that's what you have to be. If that's what it takes to get people to come to Christ, then that's what it has to be.
That's beautiful.
So, yeah, I didn't have expectations. I tried not to because you can't really prepare for something like that. Yeah.
Thank you.
But there's a big cross, but there's also resurrection at the same time.
You know, when we had some other priests, Father Elijah and Father Anthony, it was interesting because they said, we asked them, what's the hardest spiritual struggle you've ever been through? And they said, as a priest, when our children are far away from God, that is very hard on them. And we asked them, what's the greatest miracle you've ever experienced? And we were thinking, maybe an apparition or, somebody getting healed or something like that from a crazy illness. They said they both agreed unanimously that the best miracle is repentance, witnessing repentance of their children, because the change and the joy, to them, that's the biggest miracle they've witnessed. So do you have any comments on or share any similar thoughts?
Mhm. It's greater than raising somebody from the dead. That's what it's really the fathers have said. To see a sinner come to Christ is greater than raising someone from the dead. It's greater than feeding the multitudes. It's greater than walking on water. To see someone who was living away from Jesus Christ and embracing Christ and wanting to change their life, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely.
Wow.
On a more happier, joyful note, what's been the most rewarding part of your priesthood? And what's also, if I can ask, what's been the hardest part?
You see God's hand in everything.
Mm.
If you're trying to serve, and if you are trying to sincerely serve Him, you'll see God's hand in everything.
Mm.
It's so beautiful. Uh, even in the hard, especially in the hard times, you see God's hand with you. He never leaves you.
Mm.
There is nothing in this world like holding the body and blood of Christ in your hands. Nothing. It's words can't describe it. So that's the peak. And I was speaking to someone about the priesthood, and he said, "Abuna, if you take all the bad things you've experienced and all the tough times that you experienced as a priest, does it even compare just even to one time holding the body and blood of Christ? Would holding the body and blood of Christ just one time in your hands, is it worth it?" I said, "Absolutely.
Mm.
There's not even a question. Absolutely worth it." So that's the peak. Of course, as we were saying, seeing people who who are far away from Christ, or really broken, or really down, and come to Christ, beautiful. There's, it's everything. It makes everything worthwhile, you know. Uh, the hardest thing is seeing people leave Christ,
Mm.
and um, or people that hate you when they don't know how much you love them. That what you're trying to do is try to help them. You know, of
Mm.
course, as priests, when we try to help people, sometimes we will make mistakes, or we'll come off a little too strong, or we'll call a little too much, or not be there in a way that the person felt like they needed that priest to be there. And there's that human element to it, right?
Mm.
Um, so you never want to feel that you're a reason why somebody is not close to Christ. Sometimes that gets tossed around, or that's said about us, and priests make mistakes.
Absolutely.
Did you ever feel at a time too overwhelmed, and how did you get through it?
I used to get overwhelmed uh, a lot, especially earlier in my priesthood. Um, but the last couple of years, even though I would say they've been the most difficult years, um, it feels like God's hand is much more present, and I've learned to completely trust Him in everything and submit everything. And so it's very interesting, right?
Mm.
I, I often say, if I've what I've faced in these last couple of years, if I faced it 5 years ago or 10 years ago, I think I would have left the priesthood. I hate to say that. I don't. Maybe I'm speaking a little too much here, but gosh, yeah, it's sometimes it's really intense. But now, like, you learn to really trust God, and I've always seen Saint Paul as the model for a servant.
Mm.
And Saint
Mm.
Paul,
Very true.
nothing like what we experienced compared to what St. Paul experienced, not a fraction, not even a drop in a bucket, right?
Yeah.
And St. Paul, in the Philippian jail, after he was stripped naked and beaten and bleeding and chained in the inner jail, and he's praising God. He's
Mm.
praising God and singing with all his heart. Uh, I started to, just in the tiniest fraction, started to understand. There's a sweetness in the suffering.
Mm.
Can I share a story with you?
Of course, please.
Absolutely.
This is a very interesting story, kind of graphic.
That's the
When I
type
was a
that
kid,
Simon likes.
I was running, and I fell on my front two teeth, and so we went to the dentist, and because it was bleeding, and I broke my two front teeth, and so they cosmetically fixed it, but something internally happened where one of the roots of my teeth, as we grow up,
Mm.
our roots close up, and so one of the roots was damaged and it never closed, which ended up causing a terrible infection uh, in the roof of my mouth and the top of one of my teeth. Um, I had no problems. Usually, if there's an infection, there would be one of the teeth would get discolored. There was no discoloration. It was strong. It was never loose. So outwardly, everything seemed fine. I brush regularly, but inwardly, this infection was taking place, and so over 20 years, and then one day, I just get this immense pain in my front area, in the gums on top of one of my front two teeth. Immense, like crazy pain to the point I wanted to rip the tooth out. So I called a friend of mine who recently passed away. Unfortunately, he was a very blessed servant. He was studying to be an oral surgeon. He was in the middle of his residency. I said, Kiro, please, I need to do something. I'm going to rip my tooth out. I don't know what to do. So he took me to his dad's office, and he did a little procedure to kind of drain out a little bit of what the infection. And then next day I went and I got X-rays, and it showed something called a granuloma. And the dentist, when he saw the X-ray, he's like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, it's sad when when a medical professional looks at something and goes, "Oh my gosh!" He said, "This is the biggest granuloma I've ever seen in my life." Granuloma is basically an infection that ate away my bone.
Oh wow.
Oh.
Like, this was getting into like my sinus area, so it ate away a bunch of bone, and it's like a 20-year infection or something like that. So I was like, "What do we do?" He's like, "You have to remove this, and it has to be packed." And so I didn't have dental insurance at the time, so thankfully there was a dentist who helped out in removing this. So it was because it was a small little dental office. He didn't have a anesthesiologist that he was working with, and so he tried to just numb it up with local injection, a Novocaine, to kind of numb the area. So how did he remove this granuloma? He had to take a hot metal rod, singe it like it has to be fiery, and he scraped it out. And I felt every bit of it.
Oh my God.
I needed to scream, like I was holding back. And he's an Egyptian, so he kept saying, "I'm so sorry, Abuna. I'm so sorry, Abuna." Because the tears are just great. It's like, imagine a hot metal rod in your face, like literally singeing every bit of it. It was immense pain. And he's like, "I have to keep going deeper. The infection is really bad." I said, "Okay, keep going. What can I do?" So in the middle of it, I don't know. I got this thought, and I said, "What I'm feeling in this small part of my body, Jesus felt from head to toe." Right? And I said, "Lord, you took that pain for me. I'll take this pain for you."
Wow.
And I don't know how to explain it, but the pain not only became bearable, there was a sweetness in the pain. There was a sweetness. There was something beautiful that I felt in that pain, because I connected that pain somehow, some way to Christ and his cross. And so, a long story short, the gist of this is that when you are serving God and you try to serve him faithfully, and yes, you'll make mistakes, but he is so gracious. And in the midst of those moments, sometimes when it's the most difficult, you will find a sweetness in it, because you're doing this with him and for him.
It's a very good perspective that you have, and I think a lot of people will benefit from that perspective, because rather than carrying your cross alone, you realize that you're sharing with Christ your cross, and that helps you get through it and helps you. It's all about framing and perspective, I think, and a lot of time we just put ourselves in the wrong perspective. But and it's very hard, of course. It's a conversation I have with my wife all the time. She's a bit of a worrier, so I always tell her, let's learn from the experiences that we've had. Like, God always looks after us. God always takes care of us. Even if it's hard now, then it's God allowed it for a reason. And
yes,
I think maybe it's easier for men to kind of just emotionally detach and put the perspective in place. But I think women, they're blessed with a lot of emotions, so it's a bit more difficult. But yeah, I love what you said, and I think
I have something on that.
Please do.
Okay. I wasn't going to share it, but I have to share it, especially for married men. So a couple of days ago, I said something and I upset my wife, and it was hurtful, and I apologized, and it wasn't crazy, but it was like, perspective. We had difference of opinion. And I said, like, this is, I just shared my opinion kind of maybe in a way I shouldn't have, but it took a toll on her. And then next day I was like, why is this still bothering you? I already said sorry. Like, we need to get out of this. We need to have faith in this. And I was kind of saying, and then that night, I had an immense pain in my eye. I woke up like with this immense pain, like like there's sand in my eye. So even closing my eye wasn't even helping. So I go to the bathroom. I'm trying to wash it out. I'm trying to look. Is there an eyelash in there? I'm like, what's going on? I'm like, God, what's going on? And then the words echoed back to me. Well, just say it's okay. Just bear it, right? Just have faith. And I felt like God was telling me, treat your wife like your eye. It's very delicate. Be gentle. We don't tell our eye, just heal or just be better, just do this, right? So we need to give honor to the wife as the weaker vessel. Weaker not as a person, but in being delicate, being more emotional, as God created the wife to be, the nurturer, the compassionate one. So guys, treat your wives like your own eye. Be that sensitive.
Honestly, I'm very happy you shared that story, because you made me relate to you and to relate to other men, because I feel like all of us have that kind of situation when if we upset our wives, we're just like, let's just move on, It's very simple for us to be like, okay, are we just going to keep being sad? Let's, But you're very right. It's different. I guess it's very different, and I love that you shared that story. I appreciate
Very different. Thank you. I just learned it.
So now that we got advice on how to be a good husband, I want to just circle back to something. You were talking about always having faith. What would you say to someone, Father, who is constantly in a cycle of despair, where no matter what they feel as though they're doing, life's just always getting harder and harder and harder? To speak personally, George and I, since we've started this podcast, I mean, I've spoken to George a little bit off camera. Our lives have just gotten like harder and harder as the days go by, because I feel as though the devil's really trying to get in the way of this podcast, and there's always so many obstacles. But some people are not able to really try and unlock their faith and feel as though they're stuck in a level of despair. What would you say to someone who has those feelings?
Yeah. As we always say, despair is the chief weapon of Satan. That's what he wants, right? Sometimes, yes, the devil does attack, and sometimes there are difficulties that are out of our hands that befall us. But a lot of the times we put ourselves in situations we shouldn't, right? And maybe there's a lesson that's, I need to learn. Maybe I need to be a little wiser, or a little bit more patient, or a little less reactive. And then we realize, yeah, you know what? I probably should have done better. I'm not saying, we just, because sometimes that will push us in deeper despair, right? If we're just always kind of, down on ourselves. But, there's always a lesson learned. Christ's arms are always open. The image that he left us with is the crucifix. When you see a crucifix, you know who that is, right? That's the image God wanted us to recognize him with the most. That image with his arms wide open, taking our shame, taking the blame upon himself. So that speaks volumes. And Abunab Shoy Kamil, the late Abunab Shoy Kamil, the saint, that's why he often told those who confessed with him, spend 5 to 10 minutes each day before Christ on the cross. That image, if we imprint that image in our heart always, it will save us from so much. It will make us think twice when we are tempted. It will help us when we are down. It will lift us up when we feel we can't carry it anymore, and we see what he did for us. We remember that he's welcoming us, that he paid the price. So I think that's an encouraging sign, and it's the defeat of Satan, right? Every time we see Christ on the cross, we remember Satan and sin is defeated, and he can give me the strength to overcome. That's why in the Holy Week we always say, thine is the power, the glory. Even though we see Christ in his weakest moments, or what we see as the weakest, we're declaring his power and glory more than any other time of the year, right? Because he's showing us all of this because of his great love. That he went through this because of his great love for us. So fight despair, pray and seek him. Pray the Psalms. Pope Shenouda had the famous quote, keep the Psalms and the Psalms will keep you, right? Be patient. There's always a grace. There's always a grace awaiting every trial that befalls us.
Beautiful.
So, listening to you, Father, I can see that you have a strong love and devotion for Christ. Can you share with us, why do you love God so much? What moves you to love God so much?
He's the greatest lover. You know, we love him because he first loved us. And all we do is we answer the call to love. And when you recognize how much he loves, you can't but love him back. And the more you love him, the more you want to share that love with everyone, right? St. Augustine had a beautiful quote. He said, "To search for God is the greatest adventure. To find God, the greatest achievement. To love God is the greatest romance." And you can go on and on with that theme, right? To serve God, the greatest fulfillment. To tell people of God, about God is the greatest feeling. To see people come to God is you could just keep going on and on and on and on. Really, there is no secret to loving God. It's if we just open our heart just a little bit, and then when you serve him, you fall in love with him all the more because you see the work he does, how merciful he is. You know, people that you very easily could have been written off, people that have, should have been far gone, and how God calls them to him, and they become great servants and great lovers of God. You know, he never ceases to amaze. And again, going back to kind of his passion, recognizing all that he did, all that he sacrificed, all the suffering he went through and still goes through, right? When St. Paul was torturing the Christians and was inciting all this hatred towards them and wanting to drag them off into prison and get them killed, the Lord said, "Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me?" So he feels our pain in an immense way. It really affects him. And the more you serve him and the more you love him and the more you spend time with him, the more you fall in love.
What would you say to someone as a first step towards God, if someone doesn't believe, or if someone's watching this and they're on the fence about God, and I mean, they hear a lot of beautiful things, but they just haven't had that experience? What would you say to them?
Yeah. Keep searching, keep asking, keep seeking, keep knocking. Open your heart. Give him a chance. Read the Word of God. And don't read it from a standpoint of scrutinizing it necessarily. It's not, you can, but read it with an open heart and an open mind. No one lived like Jesus. He has affected the whole world. Every religion addresses Jesus in some way. Everyone. You can't, but, we're in the year 2025 because of Jesus Christ. He divided time. The Buddhists consider him as an enlightened one, like the Buddha. The Hindus consider him a god. The Muslims consider him as the Word of God and born of a virgin, and he will come and judge. Even atheists talk about his teachings. So no one lived like him. No one loved like him. No one served like him. And no one died like him. There was a street preacher who was doing interviews with people on the streets, and he met an atheist. And he said, I want to read to you a passage to this atheist. He said, I want to read to you a passage, and I want you to tell me who it is, who this passage is talking about. He said, uh, he was like a lamb led to the slaughter, and as a sheep before its shearers, he kept silent. The punishment of the people was placed upon him. By his whip marks we are healed. You know, and he read, this chapter in the Bible, and he said, do you know who this is talking about? He said, well, it sounds like Jesus Christ. He said, yeah, there was. But that's in Isaiah 53. That was written 700 years before Christ. And the atheist said, oh, well, that's interesting. But, if I write something today, there's a chance in 700 years it will be fulfilled. He said, okay, good point. However, he said, can you think of anyone else in human history that this prophecy, fulfills that person's life story? He said, no, I can't. And that's true. He came to die. He was born in the worst of circumstances. He lived the poorest life. He served and he loved, and his teachings are the greatest teachings. So you have nothing to lose if you give him a chance. And don't blame God for the bad things that people have done, even in the name of God. Even people that represent God. Don't blame him. Because those people, they have a strict judgment. It says that in the scriptures, right? That the teachers will be judged harsher. And if someone led someone astray, especially if someone harmed the child, they will have the strictest of punishments. So don't blame God for the atrocities done in the name of God. There are many, many good people who really love God. Look for those people. Learn from those people. Talk to those people. Ask them why they love God, what they have experienced with God, and take their perspective.
You named one very clear prophecy, but I believe there's like over 300 prophecies in the Old Testament that all point towards Christ. So I think
Yes.
it was probably Lee Strobel, I believe, that in his case for Christ, he calculated the probability of one man achieving all these prophecies, and I think it was like 1 to the power of like 27 zeros or something like that. One in that many.
I remember one guy who said, if you just take 14 prophecies and you have one person filling these 14 prophecies, it's like taking a silver dollar, which is a pretty decent sized coin, and marking one silver dollar and taking millions and millions and millions of other silver dollars and spreading the whole area of the size of Texas with these silver dollars with one silver dollar marked. And you give a person one chance to pick that silver dollar out of the billions that are there. The probability of just one person fulfilling just 14 prophecies is one in that amount. It was something crazy like that.
Yeah, I heard
so that was just a few prophecies.
Yeah.
I feel like, if I could say this, I feel like one of your love languages is definitely acts of service, also with your family and the congregation. Because when George had shared the news with me that you were going to join us for an episode on the podcast, I told him that we have to ask him about the clip that's been going viral about your experience with the homeless person. Now, if some of the viewers who are watching this haven't heard, would you be able to share a story similar to that, or that exact story?
Sure.
Because it was
I
very
prefer to
touching.
share different stories because I have tons of these stories.
It's very emotional and touching.
I'll share maybe 2 or 3 of these. So there was one time we were serving at a homeless shelter, and this was prior to us purchasing our building here. So we had a Bible study, and we fed the people, and we give out clothing. And there was one homeless gentleman that was so touched that he said, "Father," he was in a wheelchair, and he was in a desperate situation, like really bad shape. And he said, "Father, I have a small life savings. It's a few $100s, but I want to give that to your church. I know you're trying to buy a church, and I want to give that to you." I said, "Absolutely not. I will not take it." He said, "What?" He was like upset.
Mm.
I said, "No, I can't take it. You need that. You're in a situation where, you need some help right now, and there's no way I'll take it." And he looked at me dead in the eye and he said, "If you for 1 second think that if I give you this little amount of money and think that God will not take care of me, I'm sorry, sir, you're in the wrong business." I said, "Okay." I didn't end up seeing him again, but that really taught me something.
Of course.
You know, God is taking care of everyone. And if somebody's offering something, you take it. Sometimes it takes me a few times to learn that lesson. Something happened just a few months ago. We were walking in the streets. So by God's grace, we serve every day now. We serve the homeless. We serve between about 110 meals to 150 meals by God's grace. And I have a little story about the miracle with that. But one time we were serving meals, and there was a homeless lady, and she had a box of M&Ms, packaged M&Ms. You guys have M&Ms?
Yes, we love
Australia?
it.
We love M&Ms. Yeah.
Okay. All right, great. She had a box of M&Ms, right? And so she said to one of the servants that was, giving out the food, she said, "Oh, I want to offer this as an offering." So I came quickly to her and I told her, "No, tell her we can't accept this, I didn't know if it was contaminated, just my silly mind. And I was like, "I'm sorry, I can't." She said, "Father, come here right now." She called me over to her. I was like, "Uh-huh." She said, "If I am offering something to God, you cannot refuse." I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. It's just a policy." She said, "If I am offering something to God, you cannot refuse to take it. Understood?" I said, "Yes, understood." And we took it and we said, "Thank you. You are right." And I told her, "You're right. She is right." So people, when they offer, they're really offering out of their love. They're offering everything that they have. That's all she had. Right? She was trying to give to God, in appreciation. So she taught me a lesson. Another. I have a lot of these stories, so I'll just kind of go through some of these quickly. Another gentleman. He was also a homeless gentleman. So when we were starting our service, we would have 1 week of a full liturgy, because I was still at another church and I was transitioning from that church to this new service. So 1 week I would take a break away from that church and pray a full liturgy in this homeless shelter. We were renting a homeless shelter at the time. We were praying our first liturgies. And then the following week I would pray the liturgy at my old church and come and do a small, like the liturgy of the word, where we give kind of the gospel reading of the day and a little sermon. And so the week where we have the full liturgy, we'd have Coptic families come. And the week where we'd have just the liturgy of the word, it would be just the homeless people. So it would be Coptic families and homeless people, or just the homeless people that would come. And so I did something wrong. In the week that we had the full liturgy, I would take out our donation boxes. Okay. And the week where it was just the homeless people, I wouldn't take out the donation boxes because it was just the homeless. Right. So a homeless gentleman comes up to me and said, "Father, something weird is happening." And I said, "Yes, what happened?" He said, "1 week I come, you have the donation boxes out. And the next week I come, you don't have them out. And then you have them out again. And then you don't have them again. Why do you do this?" And of course I was embarrassed to tell him. I'm not going to tell him, we don't want to take, because I didn't want people to feel obligated,
Of course, yeah.
And I said, "Oh yeah, we don't take them out some weeks." He said, "But I want to donate." And I'm telling you, he's homeless, right? I said, "Oh, okay." He said, "So can you start taking them out every week?" I said, "Yes, absolutely, I will." So very touching. And when they donate, they're giving everything, everything they have. Another homeless gentleman, he would actually take several buses, like 45 minutes away, to get to our homeless service every Saturday. We were serving, and we would have a meal and we'd eat together. And then I found out that he was staying kind of in a shelter 45 minutes away. And we were talking, and I said, "Oh, you're coming from a very long distance. We love that you come here, but do they not have like a service like this where they give out meals in other places? He said, no, they do. I said, oh, really? I said, like next to you? He said, yeah. I said, oh, that's great, but forgive me to ask, but why do you come all the way out here? He said, oh, over there they give out meals, but here this is family.
That's beautiful.
This is my family. It was so touching, so touching. It was another time, a gentleman. This was kind of a hard one. We were sitting down, we were talking, and he started opening up, and he said, "Why did you talk to me today?" I don't remember if he was talking to me or somebody that was next to me. I was sitting at the table when he said this. The person said, "Oh, we're here because we love you." And he said, "No, tell me, why did you talk to me today?" He said, "Oh, because we see this as our family and we're friends." He said, "If no one spoke to me today, I was going to go home and kill myself." Can you imagine that? So people are hungry for love. People are hungry to be cared for. People are dying for someone to acknowledge them. And we don't judge anyone.
I think that's part of the problem is sometimes we judge and we say, I've actually had a situation before where I gave to somebody and then I saw them go straight into the pub with the money, and then I thought, oh, am I aiding and abetting this person in doing something wrong? But I think the message that I asked my confession father many times, and they say, when the money leaves your pocket, it's in God's hands. Like, don't be worried. Don't be concerned about it. So there's always two schools of thought. Sometimes people say, maybe don't give to someone who is an addict and, you're going to support their addiction. But then there are some people that say, once it leaves your pocket, and I think Saint Abram had that philosophy, like he would just give even.
Yes.
And there were times where people would misuse it and, God would actually act accordingly because they were misusing it. So what are your thoughts on
Yes.
that?
We should never judge anyone. I'm in the school of thought, if you're asked to give and you have, give.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? But I also feel like, if you can give food, that's better.
Mm-hmm.
If you can, you know, provide a blanket, this is a lot of people when they ask and they just are adamant, like, I'm really not comfortable. I said, well, then come and serve. Then you should serve in another capacity,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But I don't ever imagine that God will ask us, why did you give to a person,
Mm.
even if they used it wrong.
Mm.
Now, if there are people that are abusing, like, let's say, sometimes it happens with family members, right? Like a family member comes and they'll keep asking for money. There's situations where I've told the family, like, no, we shouldn't give, right? At some point, like, you point them to a shelter or you point them to a rehab.
Because you feel like you're
So
enabling them.
yeah, so it's not just, just without any kind of wisdom, but we should never judge. We should always be pointing people to the right direction. We should help in some manner. Uh, it's not the easiest. I know it's not the easiest.
So this seems to be a big part of your ministry because I believe I looked up your church and there's actually a statue outside called the Homeless Jesus. Is that right?
Yes.
So maybe we can pull it up on the
Yeah.
screen
We have
and
a,
you can tell us a little bit of the inspiration of having this statue outside and what it symbolizes to you.
yes. It's we love this. It's a depiction of Christ on a park bench, and he said, "I was hungry, and you gave me food. I was thirsty, and you gave me drink. I was a stranger, you took me in. I was naked, you clothed me. I was sick and in prison, and you visited me. And what you do to the least of these, my brothers and sisters, you did it to me." So every time we see this, every time we see someone, we see that that's Christ. And the inspiration behind it, there's a Canadian artist who had a similar depiction, but the head, the face, and the hand were not really shown. And I wanted to even make it a more clear picture that that's Christ. So we had this one you know, we commissioned this one,
Mhm.
and we have it right in the front of our church. And many times people think it's a real person that's laying down there. Uh, yeah, it's such a big blessing, and it makes a person think. We have a sign above it where it says, "I was a stranger, you took me in."
Mhm.
So yeah, that's a big part of our ministry here. Um, Ambasarapian, the metropolitan of our diocese, he approached me with the vision to have a service to serve the community, and specifically starting off with those who are homeless.
Mhm.
And it's been such a blessed and fruitful service by God's grace. I'll share with you the story of how we started to serve every day, and
Mm.
this was a miracle.
Mm.
A miracle because couldn't add up math. Okay, so you'll see this too. Oftentimes in our mistakes, God works in mysterious ways and in miraculous ways. So what ended up happening was there was a family. They were running a restaurant, and unfortunately, they were laid off. And it was a husband and wife, and they have 3 kids their mother. One of the parents' mothers, was staying with them. So we had I had been wanting for a long time to serve on a daily basis, because in the book of Acts it said that there was a daily distribution.
Mm.
So it's biblical.
Mm.
So I was praying for a long time for this, and so we took in account. Okay, this family can get a salary this much, and we can we'll pay for you guys this much, and we took that into account, and our finances were okay, and we said, okay, so we want you to cook food every day. I didn't take into account the cost of the food. We took into account the salary, but not the cost of the food. So at the end of the month, the gentleman came up to me and he said, Abuna, I want to share something with you. So thank you for the salary, but the plate that we make, so we usually offer a protein like a chicken or meat,
Mhm.
and a grain or pasta, a salad, and a drink, and sometimes we even give fruit and a dessert.
Yeah.
All right. So minimum you're going to pay for a meal like this, $15 US,
Mhm.
right?
Mm.
And we serve between 110 to 150 people a day. So we'll say $10 per plate. And instead of 150, we'll say just 100 people. 100 times 10 equals
1,000.
$1,000.
Mm.
Times 30
30 grand.
is $30,000. I didn't take that into account, the cost of the food. I took the salary. So when he added it up, he said, Abuna, but this is what we end up have to pay for the month, the expenses on top of the salary. It was like $780.
Mm.
How? I don't know. God allowed a restaurant to donate here and a pizza place to donate from here, and then we have a food bank and we take a little bit from the food bank and this and mix and match, and we make a nice meal for 120 to 150 people per day, for every day, by God's grace. It's
Oh, wow.
really miraculous.
Wow.
It's the 5 loaves and 2 fish.
100%.
From 30,000 to 780.
Yeah.
That's nothing short of a
That's God's math for us.
miracle.
So actually, I want to shift gears a little bit, because I know after you worked as a journalist, you actually worked as a mental health clinician and also have a master's degree in clinical psychology with an emphasis on marriage and family. So can you tell us a little bit about that, and
Yes.
can you give us any experiences and learnings from that kind of working space?
Yeah, so when Sayedna approached me after I finished, after I decided on not continuing as a journalist, I wanted to get something to help me a little bit in the service. And so I studied psychology. It was a blessing because my wife was accepted to medical school, and so we had to move out of Southern California. We went to New Jersey for a couple of years. And that gave me a chance to work as a mental health clinician in New Jersey. It was a very difficult. I was working in kind of a prison system. That was
Wow.
somewhat difficult. And then I was also working at a school. Um, Thankfully, God opened that door for me. I didn't have to be licensed in New Jersey in order to work as a therapist, so that really helped out a lot. Thank God. And it helps in the service when you see people that are suffering through different things, and sometimes you see that there's maybe something biological, or something psychological that's going on.
Mm.
And so you kind of get that perspective. But I try not to rely too much on my psychology background in the service,
Mm.
because you also don't want to label people. And as a master's level clinician, you're not really set um, to kind of diagnose people. You can kind of see there might be something there, but you can't.
Mm.
You're not able to diagnose. But at the very least, you point people. uh, you can advise people and say, you might need some a medical professional to kind of seek some advice and to
Mhm.
address this issue in your life. So there's a blessing in that. My father-in-law, he's a treasure. His name is Dr. Nabil Be'i. I'm not sure if you guys know him. Dr. Nabil is kind of a living legend. Sorry, there's a little fly buzzing around. He's a he's the Pope's uncle, and he was a neurologist, and God allowed him to suffer. He has a cross. He lost his vision, but he has the greatest spiritual vision of
Mm.
some of the greatest spiritual vision that I've ever come across. And he's a faithful servant, and he's worked as a like he studied pastoral counseling actually after he lost his vision, and he's done a lot. He's literally written the book on marriage.
Mm.
There's a book in Arabic. It should be translated into English, but it's marriage in the Coptic Orthodox tradition. Um, Quotations from the fathers, his own expertise. He's brilliant. He has a PhD. He was an MD, as I was sharing with you. Very spiritual man, and God has blessed a lot. God blessed us a lot with him, and I'm literally popes would call on him for advice.
Wow.
He's counseled thousands and thousands of couples. So he's always a treasure to kind of go back to and get advice from. So
So, what was the
yeah,
best
if you
advice
if you
you've
look
heard
up
from
his
him?
name, the best advice. This always sticks out to me. He said, to have a successful marriage today, you have to walk on water, which sounds impossible, right?
You
I
have to
know
be
it sounds
married to get
crazy,
it. You
but
have to be married to get it.
yeah, but he said, the only way to have a successful marriage is if you keep your eyes focused on Christ.
Mm.
That's the analogy, right? When St.
Yeah.
Peter kept his eyes focused on Christ, then you'll be able to walk on the water and come to Christ, because there's going to be storms.
Mm.
It's going to feel like you're drowning, but the second you take your eyes off of Christ, you will drown. So he compares it to walking on water, um, because really we see the attack on the family this day more than ever.
It's very comforting to hear, Father. Someone that's not married yet can't wait to start walking on water.
It's possible, though. It's possible.
It definitely is. After I speak with your father-in-law, definitely. That's going to be the case.
Speaking of which, Abuna, maybe after the segment you can direct Simon. We've been trying to set him up for a while now.
Father,
So
please.
I don't know,
Ta'al,
maybe
habibi.
if you have any nice LA girls for Simon.
Father, don't worry about him, please. I want to ask you a
We'll
question,
definitely
though.
pray, and you're more than welcome to come and visit us anytime, Habib.
I'll serve with you in the homeless. I don't know about for trying to find a wife there, but God's will is amazing. I want to ask you a question, though. If you could sit with God and ask him one question, what would it be? Any
I
question
sit
you want
with
to ask
God
him.
and I ask him. I sit with God every day and I ask him questions.
Yeah, that's
I
very true.
feel I hear him. I hear him, and we can sit with God and ask him questions every day. We have to.
Mm.
Mm.
We have the scriptures in our hands. We have our Father's confessions, and we can hear God's voice. He's speaking to us in nature. The heavens declare the glory of God. He speaks to us through children. He speaks through us through the homeless. He speaks to us through service. I hear him in you. So we ask God all the time, and we can hear him all the time. It's up to me. He who has ears to hear, let him hear. So yes, there is secret knowledge. There's secret things that we want to know, of course, right? But no, I really believe. What I said to you, it's not theoretical. I sit with him every day and I talk to him and I hear him.
It's a true blessing.
So when it's all said and done and you stand before God, what do you hope he says to you?
Well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a few things. I hope one day I hear that. Pray for me that I do.
He hit the spot for you,
Father Lazarus has this unique ability from God to make you feel emotional. I'm the least emotional person, but when I hear you speak, I just sometimes emotion overbears me. So, thank you, I guess.
Glory to God.
Glory to God.
Glory to God.
I wanna ask you one final question that we ask all of our guests. What does it mean to be the salt of the earth in today's world?
Salt of the earth. They used to throw the salt on the ground. Salt preserves. Salt gives flavor. But you have to be thrown on the ground. So we need to be humble. Remember that there are many people that are very broken. We have to be gentle. And as I'm saying this to you, I'm reminding myself, because I need to hear these words myself. Humble and gentle and loving. We have to remember that, salt was thrown on the ground, so who is the one that's using us to be thrown? Is God's hands. Jesus is the one. He's the sower. So I always think about that, that the goal of the being, the story of the sower and the seed. The goal is not just to be the good ground, but eventually the goal is to be the seed. That we are a living gospel, that God uses us. And just like the Lord said about the seed, He said, unless a grain of wheat or a seed goes into the ground and dies, it remains alone. But when it dies, it produces much grain. So we can be in God's hands, and we can be used by God in a very unique and special way if we allow Him to help others, to bring others to Him, to support others carrying their cross, which is the best cross, when you can help others carry their cross and bring them closer to Christ. And remember, it's all about Him.
Thank you so
God
much.
bless you
Father,
guys.
it was
Thank you for
a
your
very
time.
big blessing having you. We look forward to doing this with you again very soon.
God bless you,
Pray
inshallah.
for us.
God
Pray
bless
for us. Keep us in your prayers. God be with you.
you. See you.